Okay, this is Scantron Test Prep 10, and on this lesson, they're going to give you several input-output tables. These are also known as ratio tables. So when you're looking at these, you want to find the rule to solve for the unknown. And on the Scantron, it's placing a question mark in the unknown area. So if we take a look at this particular input-output table, we can look for a rule. How does the 3 become a 12? They have an idea, Aiden?
Times 4.
And then we test 12 times 4 is 48. So then 20 times 4 gives us 80. Okay, now if it's not a simple rule, it might be a 2-step rule where you have to find your multiplier and then add or subtract to get that output value. Or let me remind you how to work with proportions. So if you want to take just 4 spaces from the table and make it into a fraction, 12 over 20, it would need to be proportional to 48 over this unknown, which we can say is x. So if you have a problem like this, that is equal. Now you can't use this if it's the greater than or less than. We need to use it with the equal sign. We can use multiply up, divide down method in order to solve it. So 20 times 48 gives us 960, and because they're equal, then this Mickey Mouse ear also has to equal 960. So then you divide down. So we multiply up and we divide down. 960 divided by 12, notice it gives us the 80 that we already determined was the answer. So that's a good method to use if you get stuck and can't find a rule. You can always set it up in this way. Okay, they're also going to remind you about exponents today. 2 to the 3rd power is not 2 times 3. It is not. It is 2 times 2 times 2. And 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So please do not make that mistake with your exponents. You'll also have order of operations today. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication or division, whichever comes first. Addition or subtraction, whichever comes first. So if I have a problem, 3 to the 5th plus 2 times 7 times 2. If I'm following order of operations, I will start with my parentheses. 7 times 2 is 14. And then bring everything else down that you've not used. Now I go to my next step, which is exponents. 3 to the 5th is not 15. It's 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. 5 times. And so 3 to the 5th is 243. Bring down everything else that you've not used. Go to the next step, multiplication or division, whichever comes first. We only have a multiplication. So we will work 2 times 14, get 28. Bring down everything else I have not used. Last step, 243 plus 28, and I'll get 271 for my final answer. Okay, I don't want you to get confused on wording either. I noticed they worded a problem like this. Find the standard form. Okay, so don't worry about it. If you see that, you can work it sort of like an order of operation problem. 12 times 10 to the 3rd, or 10 cubed. So then you solve your exponent. That's not 30. It's 10 times 10 times 10, which is 1,000. So then 12 times 1,000 is just 12,000. You'll also have problems where you need to find the missing operator. So we don't know what the operator is. Add, subtract, multiply, or divide will be your multiple choice. What do we need to do with 6 and 4 to get 10? Franklin, we will add. So you would just choose the answer that has the plus sign. They'll also do problems with find the unknown number. This is just like solving equations. I noticed that they put a question mark in the unknown spot instead of a variable. But since we are used to solving for variables, we will go ahead and plug in a variable for that question mark. And then the objective now is to solve for y. We want y to be all by itself so we'll know what the value is. And I'll go ahead and say on the test, since this test is multiple choice, if you get stuck and you do not know how to solve, if you forget what to do, as a last resort, I want you to take each answer choice, plug in each answer until you find one that balances it on both sides. But the quicker way to do it is to know how to solve the equation. We want to do everything that we can to simplify before we start moving things from side to side. So 5 plus 2, which is inside the parentheses, will be 7. So we'll do that first. And then we'll need to do 4 times 7, which is 28. So now I've simplified everything I can, and I'm left with this 20 plus y. I want the y by itself. How can I get rid or undo this plus 20? What should I do? Subtract the 20 away, because 20 minus 20 is 0, and it'll cancel it out for us. But what I do to one side, I must do to the other. So y will equal 8. And then you can look back through here at this point where I had 28, and I could do 20 plus 8, and they balance, and it checks. You'll also have to do problems that say, is the proportion true or false? All right, so you have basically fractions. And let me remind you of what to do. You just Mickey Mouse multiply to compare. 9 times 1 is 9. 3 times 3 is also 9. The Mickey Mouse ears match. This proportion is true. You can also use that Mickey Mouse multiply if it has a greater than or less than sign, if you're trying to figure out which fraction is greater. And remember, the alligator mouth eats the bigger number. Aiden?
Could you reduce that?
Well, you're not reducing it. I mean, could be reduced. It would be reduced actually to this. But that's not what the question wants us to do. It wants us to compare and balance them. All right, then you'll also have to solve proportions. Remember, we've already practiced one of these on that first problem when we had our input-output table. If we want to solve the proportion, we want to find out the value of A, bless you. We want to multiply up. So 48 times 9 gives us 432. And since it's a proportion, the Mickey Mouse ears need to match. So then we can divide down. 432 divided by 12 makes A equal to a 36. You'll have pattern problems that are very basic, and then some that are more difficult. In this pattern, what's the next number? How do we know it's 13? What's the rule?
Plus 3.
Plus 2. All right, then they'll have some that have blanks. And you have to fill in the blank with the unknown number. What's our rule? Times 2. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32 for our blank. You will also have some problems today that are analogies. This is to this, is that is to that, and it'll be with pictures. And then you'll have some problems where you're solving real life scenarios, like Susie went to the store and had $100. She bought 3 items. This is how much it cost. How much change did she take home? So then you would just add the 3 items and subtract that from the $100 she took, and then you would know how much change she brought home.